Welcome back, Defenders. Jake here. Here's an update on the Ukrainian prisoner of war that was murdered by the Russians. The armed forces of Ukraine is now confirming the identity of this man to be Oleksandr Matsievsky from the city of Chernihiv. He was a fighter with the 163rd Battalion when he was killed last month outside the city of Soledar. Here's his service picture, and because this was only an 11-second clip, it was difficult to immediately identify the man who said "Glory to Ukraine." He was incorrectly identified as Timothy Shadura. Now, both these men are heroes, but it is important to the families of this men that they be correctly identified. And Oleksandr's body was actually returned last month. It was exchanged for the body of a Russian soldier. Oleksandr is currently buried in a military cemetery outside of Kyiv, so anyone who wants to pay their final respects to this hero, they can do so and visit his grave. On a German news site, Bild, a journalist interviewed his mother. This is a 2-minute clip on Twitter. I'm not going to play it, but I'll include it in a pinned comment down below if you want to check it out. It's pretty heartbreaking to watch. So we know the Russians are cowards, and Russia has launched the largest missile strike against Ukraine in months. So Russia launched a mass missile and drone attack across Ukraine in the early morning hours of March 9th, killing at least 6 people and injuring at least 7. Here's a map of everywhere they attacked, and as you can see, it's everywhere. And Russia, with this attack specifically, is using Moldovan airspace to avoid Ukrainian air defense systems. So they're purposely going farther out into the Black Sea to launch directly over Moldova to hit targets here close to Lviv. And this attack was slightly different. This was the largest volley of Russian hypersonic Kinzhal missiles ever fired at Ukraine. Russia fired 6 Kh-47 hypersonic ballistic missiles, a weapon Kyiv says it cannot yet defeat. And the reason why is these hypersonic missiles travel at Mach 12, 12 times the speed of sound. A Patriot air defense missile is not going to be able to catch a hypersonic missile traveling at Mach 12. Here's a statement from Ukraine's Air Force spokesperson. "This was such an attack, to be honest. I don't recall something like this." Kinzhal missiles mean dagger in Russian. He confirmed that Ukraine's air defense systems cannot shoot down these missiles. They didn't get a single one of these Russian hypersonic missiles. So the scorecard for this round of attacks is not good for Ukraine. Russia launched about 83 drones and missiles, and Ukrainian air defense systems were only able to shoot down 38, so just under 50%. What this tells us is they've got to close the gap over Moldova's airspace. In addition, Ukraine needs more and better air defense systems. When we look at the damage, once again, civilians were targeted, civilians were killed, small villages were hit. Here's a drone video showing just a residential neighborhood, and a missile hit in between these 3 homes, destroying the 3 homes. Here's a giant hole in a field that Russia spent millions of dollars to create. They're not hitting whatever targets they think they're hitting, but I don't know. Here's a report from Maria Avdiva. She's in the city of Kharkiv.
Russia again tries to plunge Kharkiv in complete darkness. Last night, 15 missiles were launched on Kharkiv from Belgorod, S-300 missiles, massive missile attack. It resulted in a complete electricity shutdown in many houses. There is no electricity, no heating, no water. Russia again is targeting civilian infrastructure, energy infrastructure facilities, trying to inflict as much suffering for civilian population as it could.
The city of Kharkiv, once again, is over 1 million people, currently without electricity, without water, and without heat. And this is what life looks like for Ukrainian civilians as Russia continues to target them. This is a Ukrainian mother and her child with their dog choosing to sleep in their bathtub, hoping it will offer them protection should one of these Russian missiles hit another residential apartment building. And just as these missile attacks were going off, Ukrainians were holding funeral services for this family killed in Zaporizhia, Amelia, Camelia, and Ilya. Just look at this small pink casket for an 8-month-old baby. The Russians are monsters. So it was Albert Einstein who said the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So 4 or 5 months ago, the Russians were making this argument that they were going to start targeting Ukraine's civilian energy grid in order to freeze them out this winter, to get the Ukrainian government to capitulate and surrender to the Russians, go to the peace talks and concede territory. We're now in March. We're now in spring. This plan didn't work. Every time the Russians target Ukraine's energy grid, it just takes a couple days, maybe a couple weeks at most, for Ukraine to repair it. This is not working. This is not going to get the Ukrainian government to surrender to Russia. So either the Russians are insane, or they're deliberately just committing acts of terrorism because they enjoy it. This is not helping them achieve any of their military objectives. So when we look at the front lines, the city of Bakhmut continues to hold. I've been saying this on my channel for 5 months now. And there is no sign of withdrawal at this time. A Ukrainian fighter in Bakhmut contradicts NATO's claim that the city could fall within days. Western military analysts have been claiming, Russian bots in the comments section have been claiming for 5 months now that Bakhmut could fall within a matter of days. However, Russia's Wagner group does claim to hold the eastern part of the city. When we zoom in on the map, you can see there's this river going north-south, and the Russians have captured the eastern part of the city. So Prigozhin himself wanted a photo op. I guess this is some kind of World War II memorial on the eastern side of the city. But this picture is very revealing. So check it out. Prigozhin in eastern Bakhmut, and you know what isn't there? A Russian flag. It is so revealing to see that those mercenaries are fighting for their oligarch, not for Russia or the Russian army. It is a socio-political mix of oligarchy, warlordism, and feudalism. So Prigozhin looks like he's having a good time, being a warlord on foreign soil, raping and pillaging, doing whatever he wants, not being constricted by any law or government. This guy's not fighting for Russia, he's fighting for himself. And these men surrounding him are not fighting for Russia, they're fighting for Prigozhin, they're fighting for their oligarch. So this has the Russian government slightly concerned, and the Wagner boss has been cut off from official channels after a public ammo plea. So the head of Russia's notorious Wagner group Prigozhin said on Thursday that he's been cut off from all government communication channels following his recent public plea to the Ministry of Defense to supply his fighters in Ukraine with urgently needed ammunition. So Prigozhin, for weeks now, has been publicly feuding on social media with Shoigu and the regular Russian military. And at some point, I think Putin himself is going to get involved and just end this guy. He's becoming too much of a liability. And there's this very weird, bizarre PSYOP battle being had where I think the regular Russian military now is deliberately putting out propaganda videos to counter Prigozhin's propaganda videos. So here is a video of regular Russian soldiers reading from a piece of paper, claiming that they're stationed outside of Vuhledar, and they don't have enough ammunition because it's being diverted to the Wagner Group. So once again, there's a PR battle for Wagner occurring, and the regular Russian military doesn't want to be outshined. Every video now, I mention these videos of Russian soldiers filming appeals to Putin, asking for help, or just committing mutiny. They come from this channel, Dmitry over at War Translated. He's doing fantastic work. And this clip right here, it's 6 minutes long. I'll put it in the pinned comment down below if you want to watch it for yourself. But once again, it's Russian soldiers mutinying and filming it on camera. So let me read for you a little bit of what they say. They're refusing orders currently. And they say, put everyone to jail, we'll stay there. No one will go on the attack. How long is it, the jail sentence? 5 years, 7 years, 10? We don't give a shh. At least we'll be alive and not giving the rest of our lives away. For whom? For what? We are being sent to our deaths for sure. Again, we do not refuse to fight in the territorial defense as we were drafted. We refuse to assault. Put us in jail. Seriously, everyone. Let those who come. They don't want to be part of these meat wave attacks. And the problem that the Russian military has is they lie to everyone as they're being conscripted and mobilized inside of Russia. Inside of Russia, they tell all these people, you're going to be artillerymen, far from the front lines. You're going to be on the second or third line of defense. When people are being conscripted or mobilized in Russia, nobody is being told you're going to be part of a meat wave attack on the front lines. All of these Russian soldiers are being lied to get them to Ukraine, and then once they show up in Ukraine, that's when their leadership tells them, hey, we didn't give you any training, you don't have proper equipment, but go assault that village. How much longer are these soldiers going to accept this before they just turn their guns on their own leadership? Here's an interesting post from Chris O, and he's talking about the frequency of these videos of soldiers mutinying on camera. So mobilized Russians from at least 16 regions of Russia have posted videos in the last few weeks complaining about poor training, lack of equipment, brutal commanders, mistreatment, and being used as meat for suicidal assaults on Ukrainian positions. Anyone who follows Dmitry at War Translated should know, and they've been confirmed by the independent Russian news outlet V, analyzing where these videos have been coming from. So what is the Russian military's response? Are they taking these videos and the war seriously? And here's an absolutely insane clip I have to share with you guys. Check this out. Russia and their stupid trains. Who is this supposed to intimidate? A single HIMARS or one of these new JDAM bombs could destroy this train. Additionally, they have an anti-aircraft gun mounted on it, and don't they claim Ukraine no longer has an air force? As well as these stupid gun holes with machine guns. Who are they targeting? Who are they possibly going to hit aside from farm animals in the countryside? This is the stupidest thing ever, yet Russia wastes their time, money, and resources building this and then filming propaganda videos to impress who? I honestly don't know. So let's talk about some other players in this conflict, and it's being reported now that Iran has delivered ammunition to Russia on the Caspian Sea. Iran has supplied quantities of bullets, rockets, and mortar shells to Russia for use in Ukraine. This is according to Western intelligence. These ships are not very discreet. Everyone knows when they're moving weapons such as the Iranians have done. Here's the geography of the Caspian Sea, and Iran here is on the south. Russia is here on the north bank. So these two ships departed from Tehran and then eventually docked in Astrakhan on the Volga River. So Russia, supposedly the world's second most powerful military and exporter of military arms, is so desperate that they're willing to accept old materials and leftovers from the Iranians. And this is bad news. I don't like this headline. Russia reportedly supplying enriched uranium to the Chinese. Various open source outlets reported how Rosatom is providing highly enriched uranium for Chinese fast breeder reactors. Oh, geez. Now, China is already a nuclear power. China wants to expand their nuclear arsenal, so they're happy to get whatever they can as far as enriched uranium from the Russians. This headline doesn't say Russia is sending enriched uranium to Iran, but I think we all know what Iran wants. If anyone's listening, Israel, maybe you could do something about that. The other big story that's been happening the last couple days are the protests in Georgia. This is the capital city of Tbilisi, and the government was about to pass a new foreign agents law that Russia wanted them to pass. And protesters came out in force to object to this law being passed. Let me show you a little bit of what the crowds look like in the capital city. So mostly the protesters, the crowds are being nonviolent and peaceful. You can see Georgian flags, you can see Ukrainian flags, you can see EU flags. I even saw an American flag, which is pretty incredible. And here's another clip of them singing the Ukrainian national anthem together. So the events, the war in Ukraine, are directly impacting the people of Georgia. The people of Georgia do not want their government being influenced by the Russians. So the fact that Russia supported this law, that's enough for probably the majority of these people to come out in force to oppose it. Many people are comparing what's happening in Tbilisi to the Maidan revolution in Kyiv 8 or 9 years ago. I don't quite think that's what's happening here. I think it is unfair to call the Georgian government pro-Russian. Because of the protesters, they did retract this bill. They're not going to pass it into law. They're also releasing anyone who was arrested. Those were the two demands. There are protesters calling for the government of Georgia to resign, to have new elections, a new government formed. And I think this is the problem. The government in Georgia is not pro-Russian like Belarus is. But because they're such a small country that's been attacked by the Russians before, they're just very proactive about avoiding the attention or the animosity of the Russians. So here's a tweet from today from a Russian government authority. This is what they say. Protesters against the Foreign Agents Bill erupted in Tbilisi result in demands for the resignation of the government. We recommend to the Georgian people to recall a similar situation in Ukraine in 2014 and what it finally led to. Hashtag think twice. So this is the Russian government threatening Georgia that if you don't do what we want, if you do what the pro-Ukrainian protesters want, we might attack you. And the population of Georgia is less than 1/10 the size of Ukraine, only 3.7 million people. It's comparable to the population of the state of Connecticut. And Russia still already controls 20% of their territory. So when Russia invaded Georgia in 2008, they more or less annexed 20% of their country, and they've held on to it for 15 years. I do think that at the end of this conflict with Ukraine, an agreement will be reached, and Russia is going to have to pull out of these territories and return it to the people of Georgia. Just my prediction. Let's talk about some bad news for Russia. Russia's biggest bank announces a huge 2022 fall in profits. So Russia's Sberbank on Thursday announced its net profit dropped 80% for the year of 2022. So they only made $3.56 billion in profits, which is a 78% decrease from the previous year. Now, somehow they're still making a profit. I don't really want to see that. So for 2023, let's see this go negative, and the bank only loses money by operating. Also bad news for Russia is that their year-over-year revenue for oil and gas sales is now down by 48%. So here is the orange is oil, the gray is gas. This is how much, or no, here's February. This is how much they made in total revenue from the export of oil and gas, and it's fallen by over 50% from 1 year ago. This is a nightmare for Russia's budgets. They're already operating at a monthly deficit. Let's now talk about some good news for Ukraine, and Slovakia and Poland are saying they are ready to send their MiG-29 fighter jets to Ukraine. I'm personally shocked that there are any remaining old Soviet aircraft anywhere in Europe, but Slovakia and Poland just wanted to guarantee they could protect their own skies before fully transferring these planes to Ukraine. Hopefully they make a difference. Here's a funny headline. Latvia sends cars seized from drunk drivers to help Kyiv. Anytime I hear about these stories out of the Baltics, they always make me smile. I feel like those countries, more than any others, have been the most innovative in finding ways to support Ukraine. Final couple feel-good clips I have for you. The first one is of a Ukrainian cook with his units, just showing you what they're having for dinner. There's no subtitles, but here's the text, and he's basically just describing all the food that they will be enjoying for dinner.
Так, сьогодні у нас на обід картопля зварена в кілограмі солі, тюлечка з цибулькою, з олійкою, капуста квашена з огірком і цибулькою, помідорчики від баби Олі, помідорчики ці від тьоті Каті. Кажуть, що це ківі, гаразд, це ківі, вафля з цукеркою, якийсь там турецький салат, сальце та лимончик для рибки. Смачного!
Bon appetit, looks delicious. Final clip I have for you guys is the first call made by a Ukrainian woman who was just released from Russian captivity. I don't know if she's a POW or if she just was a civilian being held by the Russians, but she was allowed to use a cell phone and then call her family.
Я скоро буду дома. С бабушкой позвони, скажи, что я жила дома. Я не знаю, Котик, где я в Украине, это точно. Маме дадуть телефон, ми зараз приведемо вашу маму в шпиталь, її обстежать, перерують, передягнуть, дадуть їй свій власний телефон, і вона вам зателефонує, вона пам'ятає ваш номер. Це телефон координаційного штабу. Ну, ваша мама жива, мама в Україні, вдома вже зараз. Все необхідне, все мамі зробимо, надамо допомогу, і мамочка вас набере.
Russia will be defeated. That's all for this update video. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. If you found this video informative, give me a thumbs up. Best way to support the channel. Comments and questions, let me know down below. Until the next video, keep defending the truth, keep defending democracy.